All right, so welcome to our Engineering for One Planet webinar. Thank you for being here. I'm Jamie Wood-Riley, a program officer on the Higher Education Innovation Ecosystems team at VentureWell. We'll be assisted today by my colleague Margot Kinney, and she will be providing tech support. So if you have any tech issues, you can throw those into the chat. Before we get started, I'd like to orient everyone to the webinar format, and it's just a little bit different from a regular Zoom meeting. So you'll notice down in your at the bottom of your Zoom window that you have a Q&A tool and a chat tool. Please use Q&A to submit questions for the panelists, and please use, and we're going to answer those questions, as many as possible, after all 5 panelists have presented. And then please use the chat to have conversation with fellow attendees during the webinar. And we will be recording this, and we'll share it out to all of the registrants along with the slides after the webinar. Okay, so we noticed that among the registrants, some of you have a lot of experience with Engineering for One Planet, and others of you are brand new to EOP. So I'm going to take a moment to introduce Engineering for One Planet so we're all on the same page. So Engineering for One Planet is an initiative to transform engineering education to reflect the growing importance of sustainability in all engineering functions, catalyzed by the Lemelson Foundation and VentureWell, in collaboration with hundreds of sustainability advocates across sectors, geographies, and lived experiences. EOP seeks to ensure all future engineers across all disciplines learn the fundamental skills and principles of social and environmental sustainability. The EOP framework is a cornerstone of the EOP initiative, the first of its kind to guide coursework, teaching tools, and student experiences that define what it means to be an engineer who is equipped to protect and improve our planet and our lives. It provides faculty with a vetted menu of competencies aligned to ABET accreditation standards that every graduating engineer, regardless of subdiscipline, needs to acquire to design, code, build, and implement solutions that are socially and environmentally sustainable. Co-created by a community of hundreds of experts from a range of identities, lived experiences, geographies, and sectors, including academia, industry, nonprofit, government, and philanthropy. The framework was designed to be widely adaptable and adoptable by engineering faculty and administrators. It was launched in 2020, piloted in 2020-2021, and updated in 2022 to better reflect diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice principles and topics of social sustainability. To learn more about EOP, please visit engineeringforOnePlanet.org. There you'll find the framework, learning outcomes, and EOP activities, including great videos and instructions for quickly incorporating Engineering for One Planet activities into your courses. So now to the main event that we're very excited for. This summer, we selected 5 fellows to attend the ASEE conference and report back what they learned about Engineering for One Planet. Those fellows are Aditya Kanal from the University of Texas at Tyler, Arthur Huang from the University of Central Florida, Dalia Ismail from Old Dominion University, Stephen Jiang from North Carolina A&T University, and Tavis Ezel from City University of New York's Advanced Science Research Center. Each fellow will briefly introduce themselves and then speak for a few minutes about what they learned about Engineering for One Planet at the ASEE conference. After we hear from our 5 fellows, we will open the webinar up for questions. So feel free to add questions in the Q&A area at any time. We will be collecting those for the end. All right, I'd like to welcome Aditya.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here for this presentation. Let me give a brief introduction for me. I'm an assistant professor of chemical engineering at the Jasper Department of Chemical Engineering at UT Tyler. My academic background is in chemical engineering, but I also did a postdoc in petroleum engineering. My current research is in CO2 sequestration in subsurface formations. I want to understand what happens when you inject CO2 at high pressure in geological formations like saline aquifers or depleted oil and gas reservoirs. I use numerical reservoir simulation, experimental methods, and data-driven methods for my research. Other areas of interest are underground hydrogen storage, renewable energy, optimization of unconventional reservoirs, and related areas. Jamie, if you go to the next slide. Okay. So I want to start with the research motivation. And this is a statistic from NOAA recently published data. So as of 2023, and this was published in September 11th, there were 23 confirmed $1 billion weather or climate disasters. Now, what is $1 billion weather or climate disasters? That's a kind of a natural calamity that causes more than $1 billion in damages. Now, that's only United States. If we compare that to the past, from 1980 to 2022, it was only 8.1. And if we compare that to the recent past, it was 18. So these disasters are increasing rapidly, and it is happening more frequently. So my research and the topic that we are discussing today aligns very well to mitigate some of the factors that is causing that. So I'm really happy to expand more on that. So what did I learn at ASEE conference? This would take a long time to explain because I got to attend many good presentations, got to meet really interesting professionals in different areas of science and engineering. But I want to summarize a few things that I learned. So the first thing that I was able to learn was it is applied. EOP principles has been applied to many engineering classes already, such as in chemical engineering, in civil engineering, environmental engineering, electrical, computer, and data science. So my area of teaching is chemical engineering. One of the topics or the presentations that I attended was how EOP principles was applied to a core curriculum course of process control in chemical engineering. And as we know, process control is a required course for BS chemical engineering. So it was very interesting to see that, and it was very interesting to see that it could be implemented within the existing course without any additional work. So the second thing that I learned was how EOP framework aligns really well with ABET. So ABET, for those of you who do not know, it's an accreditation board for engineering and technology. All the engineering departments have to be ABET certified to have a validity of a quality. So we just started our program in 2019, and we went through this ABET certification recently. So I know how rigorous it is and how time consuming it can be. So if you had to change your coursework to satisfy that criteria, it would be very difficult. But if you look at the publications already out there for EOP, you don't really need to change a lot to satisfy the ABET criteria. So ABET has 7 learning outcomes, and EOP framework covers all of them and even goes beyond. Also covers sustainable development goals set forth by the United Nations in 2015, specifically the number 12, which is ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. So, in conclusion, EOP framework can be implemented to the existing course without any changes or major changes to the current plan. So my implementation of EOP. So I took this, I went to this conference in summer and I learned a lot about EOP. So I'm implementing the EOP framework in these classes in collaboration with my colleague in mechanical engineering. So if you look at the diversity there, we have 2 chemical engineering classes and 3 mechanical engineering classes. 4 of the classes are undergraduate classes and 1 is a graduate class. So in these classes, we hope to introduce the EOP concepts to over 100 students and hope that they will use some of that concepts when they become an engineer and take that to their workforce. So how will I do that? So I wanted to divide this into a couple of sections. So the first one is methods. I'm implementing it by using project project-based learning. So I'm assigning them an open-ended project where they would pick up a topic that aligns with the course and what they are learning as a whole. So for one dedicated lecture, I would provide them what EOP framework is, point them to the resources where they can learn more, also show them few videos from the quick start activity guide so that they don't feel lost. You know, they have somewhere to start. The student deliverables will be a group report that they work together so that they can work on their communication skills, leadership skills, and they can also work well together. And finally, present in front of the class about the topic that they chose. The major outcome from this would be, of course, 112 engineering students from different disciplines will know about the EOP framework, which I hope will be very valuable for them when they go and work in the industry, and to assess how we did and to improve it for next semester. We also will do pre and post completion surveys so that we can improve ourselves for the next iteration. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll take questions later on.
Thank you so much, Aditya. Now I'd like to welcome Arthur to unmute.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Arthur Huang. I'm an associate professor of civil engineering at the University of Central Florida. And my research interests include human-AI interactions in the context of urban management, STEM workforce development, and sustainable engineering system design. And I have background in both urban planning and policy, civil engineering, and computer science. My past projects have analyzed the interactions between human mobility, environmental pollution, and built environment using big data, especially social media data. I have also looked at the hurricane impact in Florida economy and the recovery in local communities using historical longitudinal data sets. And my recent project have looked at how do we attract potential workforce from other industries into STEM industry through the stepstones of community colleges and colleges to meet the greater needs of the society. Next. So I had a great time in a conference, learning a lot from different speakers and poster sessions. And there are really quite a few things that stood out to me in terms of sustainable education. I myself is lead accredited professional in building design and construction. And I always try to find ways to integrate the knowledge into my courses. As Aditya mentioned earlier, due to the ABET accreditation requirements, we have very limited capacity in adding new courses or new student hours, in particular sustainability. So I've seen different innovations from different universities in doing that. One is to conduct university-wide student competition, focusing on sustainability themes. There are a few universities, including Texas and A&M, and they have designated funding to support the annual student event. And typically that's organized by a student club, mentored by several faculty members, and they provide different training opportunities, sustainability, teaming, entrepreneurship, etc. So I thought that's a great idea for different universities to learn from. And the second outstanding idea is to have more industry-supported experiential learning in our traditional engineering courses. That includes perhaps reducing some of the quizzes or exams, weight, evaluation by adding more in-class activities or extracurricular activities or group project-based learning to help students gain deeper understanding about the problem, the background, impact, and so on. And the third major area that I've seen in sustainable education is project-based learning and co-curricular activities. So that would include having a real-life projects and simplify that and use that as a class project and give us a heavier weight in the class in the project. So that will help students to exercise multiple skills and abilities in addressing a complex problem. That includes critical thinking, sustainability, considerations, equity, ethics, teamwork, etc. So all these different elements covered by ABET could be integrated into one of several projects in one course. And also there are many co-curricular activities that can be designed to help students gain deeper understanding about the background of a project. Next. So regarding my implementation of ELP, I have taken several steps based on what I learned from the conference. The first one is to design some new course modules on sustainability and LEED certification. So I have taught freshman engineering courses and also the capstone projects. And I realized that if you just cover the content in the capstone, usually there's not enough time and students don't have the mentality yet. So my plan is to introduce some of these topics through new course modules in the intro or introductory seminar courses and assign some group project for them, for the freshmen to work on, so that they have the mentality of sustainability from the get-go. And in the sophomore and junior year courses, try to instill some of the modules into existing courses. That would help students gain a bigger picture through the 4 years. Another innovation I'm working on right now is for my graduate level statistical analysis courses. I initiate a mock business competition on sustainability and AI. So students will be leveraging machine learning, generative AI to address the problem particularly related to sustainability. And so I provide an opportunity to work together on different ideas, and we leverage the business model canvas as a in-class exercise for students to kind of express their value proposition, business streams, and marketing, etc., to support each other. And furthermore, I added some industry talks and career development series related to careers in sustainability, kind of helps them expand their horizon and understanding of how to work in this area, other than just have these fancy talks and etc. So how can I get into this as a worker and support sustainability across society? And also, we conducted field trips to urban renewal projects to look at how sustainable design has been integrated into these different newer projects. For example, rainwater collection, using more native species, plants in the parks to reduce water use, etc. So all these different experiences can help students gain deeper understanding about the issue and help them develop deeper knowledge and skills in this area. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arthur. Welcome, Dahlia.
Good afternoon. I'm Dahlia Ismail, Assistant Professor at ODU in the Engineering Technology Department. My primary focus is on sustainable design, advanced visualization, and entrepreneurial approaches in engineering education. As you can see from the images, this is Norfolk, Virginia, and this happened a couple of weeks ago, very close to where our university campus is located. We've been facing a lot of environmental challenges like frequent flooding every time there's a storm or intense rain, which really highlights the need for sustainable engineering solutions that consider future impacts of climate change. At the recent conference, the ASEE conference, I was introduced to the EOP framework. I did not know about it before. I believe it offers a great roadmap for embedding sustainability into engineering courses. And the reason that matters is because we're not just teaching students to solve problems that are happening today. We're teaching them to think more long-term and ensure that any solutions they create don't become tomorrow's challenges. Next. So at the conference, I gained insights into the implementation of the EOP framework, specifically at RIT. They've introduced sustainability concepts in their civil engineering technology program. The course materials introduced students to sustainability concepts for building and infrastructure projects, and the students weren't just learning about these concepts, they were also applying them to real-world problems. So, for example, they use them to look into the UN Sustainable Development Goals or think more about material selection and environmental responsibility, which are all critical aspects of effective learning. And what I thought was really interesting was the students' feedback. So they were able to get feedback from students after the incorporation of EOP, and there was more than 80% of students reporting an improvement in their understanding of sustainability-related concepts. So after seeing that and how the EOP had a positive impact at RIT, and because their program is very similar to ours, it got me thinking about my own courses. And I'm currently teaching a course called Sustainable Building Practices, where students get to explore green building strategies. And the question that got me thinking was, how can I take my courses that are already centered around sustainability? How can I enrich them even further through this framework? So the EOP framework provides many opportunities to refine skills. And out of all the categories, the one that caught my attention the most is the leadership skills category, which includes critical thinking, communication, and teamwork. For example, the EOP framework mentions that effective communication is not just speaking clearly, but about tailoring the message to the audience. And my course has 2 different projects where students are required to present. So I'll be asking them this semester to identify the target audience for their presentations and tailor their messages accordingly. And the way I'm going to grade this is I'm going to provide a rubric that includes criteria for audience-specific communication. For teamwork skills, the EOP framework encourages cross-disciplinary teamwork and active participation, which I incorporate directly into their group projects. And the value is teaching students the worth of bringing diverse perspectives into their problem-solving skills. And as for critical thinking, the EOP framework guides students to consider not just solutions, but what are the broader implications. And that prompts students to be more introspective and to recognize the connection between their designs and the values, and to understand the ethical implications of their work. So this semester, my students will identify a building problem, propose an innovative solution, and create a prototype. And I'll have them practice critical thinking by asking them to identify the values that will guide that design that they come up with. And that could include environmental sustainability, maybe something related to social responsibility, ethical considerations. And this is all provided in the EOP. And I personally found the quick start activity guide, which Jamie mentioned earlier, is very useful, especially for faculty who have just been introduced to this framework. It provides detailed suggestions on content that we can directly incorporate and integrate into our activities and class assignments. So I personally use that for my course. So looking ahead, I aim to incorporate EOP into a broader range of courses. So not just this semester. We have introduced a new minor in our department called the Engineering Solutions for Climate Adaptation and Resilience. And this includes a new exciting course called Managing the Climate Crisis, which I'm excited to teach next semester. And my goal is to integrate EOP while designing that class. And to bring it to full circle, I wanted to go back to the Norfolk flooding issue earlier. The innovative solutions in those pictures, like the marsh fringes, permeable pavements, oyster reefs, those are just solutions. They're nature-based solutions that can help prevent flooding. And they show the type of systems thinking and multidisciplinary collaboration that needs to take place for those solutions to work. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Dahlia. It's fantastic. And now for Stephen.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephen Jan. I'm the associate professor in the Industrial Systems Engineering at North Carolina A&T State University, located in Greensboro, North Carolina. So I teach courses in engineering stats, human-computer interactions, Lean Six Sigma, design experiments, safety engineering, engineering entrepreneurship. So it covers from the basics to designs. What's interesting is the course I'm currently co-teaching this semester, engineering entrepreneurship. It's the first time we're trying to implement the EOP in our course. So I'll talk a little bit about this later. So my research interests are in the human systems integration. So as you can imagine, this sustainability obviously attracted a lot of my attention. Once I know there's opportunity to learn more about EOP, I'm very excited and went to the ASEE conference and quite a bit. So my research mainly is, so some of the application area, including hunger relief organization. So the reason I mentioned that is in our course, the semester we're implementing EOP, we actually bring some real world problems that we discovered or we've been researching into our students and try to ask them to develop some innovative ideas and by introducing the EOP framework. So what did I learn from this conference? I attended 3 out of the 4 presentations that explicitly have the engineering for one planet in their paper titles. The 4th one, unfortunately, was the concurrent sessions. I couldn't go. 2 of them, I believe the 2 prior panelists already mentioned it. I also had some conversation with past recipients of ASEE mini grant, which help instructors to implement a EOP in their courses, and got some very interesting tips when they try to implement EOP in their courses. So the presentation the previous panelists did not mention is the one that talks about the toolkit for basically how to disseminate EOP. So this presentation was given by Andrew, Cynthia, and Cindy. So they basically talked about the background of EOP, the history of it, and introduced the community, and also mentioned the toolkit, the great resource like what Jamie mentioned on their website, and also give some examples of how EOP could be implemented. So the second presentation was discussed earlier, was implementing the chemical process control. What I learned from there is the interesting ways they try to. So they had a lecture, and they also have some videos and handouts to give to the students. One thing I think it's interesting is the presenter at the end mentioned that he was surprised when at the end of the semester, the survey result indicated the students was not their knowledge of sustainability did not significantly improve, which is a surprise to him. So, which kind of gave me some indication. So I gotta prepare for potential challenges when I do this in my course. And the third one is applied to the civil engineering course. What I learned from there is that aligning the course learning object, especially as previous panelists mentioned, the ABET requirements, it's really easy. So you don't really have to significantly change the way you teach. So that's one takeaway I got from that presentation. So next, please. So in summary, what I learned is there are resources, there are tools available to help us to implement EOP in our courses. Again, Jamie mentioned those. The EOP website has great resources there. One thing is, instead of creating new learning objectives, aligning ABET student outcomes with the EOP is really easy. So here's an example. Actually, you can find this from the EOP framework website. So it's very easy. You can see it to align the ABET requirements to the ST here. System thinking is one of the EOP learning outcomes here. And another thing is try to be realistic and do not to be too ambitious. So the scope is very important. Try to implement what you can, and instead of try to implement the entire EOP. The great toolkit allow the customization of the modules that you can implement. So, and obviously utilize the resources that Jamie mentioned that's available to us. So move to what I plan to do. So as I mentioned, I am co-teaching this engineering entrepreneurship course with a colleague. And this is the first time we're implementing the EOP framework to the course. And also we're bringing some real world problems to this course, specifically food rescue is the problem that we bring to our students. At the beginning, I was a little concerned about students' reaction to additional layer of the course material, but they are very receptive. So I have already given 2 lectures on sustainability. One basically talking about the EOP framework in general. The other one is give some introduction to the key tools. As a requirement, they're going to complete a project, and we require them to do at least 2 things from this EOP framework, which is a whole system mapping and life cycle assessment. So they have to report back. What we also plan to do is, in addition to the lecture, we'll have field trips where they're going to do customer discovery for their business model canvas. So while they're talking to the customers, it's great. We already make some connections for them to have some field trip. So the whole idea is now not only they need to develop a solution, but they need to consider the from the system thinking perspective. So that's what we plan to do for the semester. We also, Jamie, if you can move to the next. So we also did a quick survey at the very beginning of the class. The first class, we asked them, just give a few words to describe sustainability. This is what you see here. So as you can see, they're mainly surrounding the social aspect of it, not so much an environmental or economic aspect of it. So, oh, my time's up. Okay, so the next question is the issues that related to sustainability. And we plan to do this at the very end of the semester to see how their views are different. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Stephen. And we're doing actually really well on time, so you all are great. And just a reminder to everybody in the audience, please go ahead and submit your questions in the Q&A space, and we will start taking a look at those after Tavis's presentation. All right, Tavis.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jamie, and thank you to the Littleson Foundation and VentureWell for giving me the opportunity to attend the ASEE conference for the very first time. In fact, I have to say I'm pretty excited and also humbled to be here in an audience of my colleagues here who are all experts in their own engineering disciplines and teachers themselves. You'll have to bear with me because I am not quite that person. I'm actually, in fact, kind of the business person in the science building. So I have a science background, but I spent 13 years in industry and then jumped into the academic shoes in the position I have currently at CUNY's Advanced Science Research Center. So the reason there is a business person in the science building is the fact that we're all talking about trying to solve really big problems. And in many cases, that's the idea of translating technology from the lab to the marketplace. So CUNY was successful in getting a New York State funded program to build partnerships between academic resources and industry. And that's where I come in, because the program is really designed to put funding into early frontier technology development that benefits from funding, support, and resources that are critical in order to get these technologies out into the world and solve some of the big problems that are illustrated on this screen. So I just wanted to highlight, given that it's Climate Week this week, that we're talking a lot about problems that affect not only our environment and planet, but also our human health. And many of the projects that we work on are basically included from the hardware side all the way down to systems thinking in chemistry and biology and re-engineering or hacking biology in order to do things in a biodegradable, sustainable way. So as I mentioned, this was my first time attending the ASEE conference. So in fact, the first time I was attending a conference based on engineering education. So I'm very much the teacher for the first time, which is why I'm happy to be here, because we were able to create a course with CUNY's Baruch Center of Field Entrepreneurship in order to continue CUNY's mission of aiming to serve diverse populations that exist in New York. So most of you tend to think of New York as being this place of immense wealth, which it is, but in many cases, it's also the opposite. So there's extreme disparities. So when looking at the different sessions at the ASEE conference, some of the ones that stood out to me especially were those based on DEI, so diversity, inclusivity, and equity, in addition to the EOP framework, which I was learning for the first time. So I just want to touch base for a second just to think about the fact that, our workforce in New York State and across the country is going to have to get more diverse, because there's just not enough people to satisfy the needs that are coming in the future for STEM-based manufacturing learning. And therefore, I think about that as we go into designing our course for the first time and helping students with PhD backgrounds from diverse populations in different countries. So some of the things that stuck out to me really were, sessions that were based not only in the undergraduate level, but all the way to the PhD level, covering topics from collaborative learning in the class setting, to STEM undergrad matriculation and PhD studies, to firsthand BIPOC experiences in industry internships. And so I took away a lot of different impacts from that, which I hope to take into the classroom And luckily, I'm joined by a colleague of mine who does a lot of work embedded in the community in Bronx and West Harlem, where our building is based, where we're thinking about bringing in some of those technologies into the community to do mentorship. Okay, so just to touch on the fact that, as I mentioned, we created a course for the very first time dedicated to PhD students who are really given an opportunity to think about entrepreneurship for the first time. What we are thinking about in terms of the EOP framework is really this idea of sustainability across the whole systems thinking of engineering. So many of our students are coming from diverse multidisciplinary backgrounds, everything from bioengineering to material science and engineering. So one of the challenges of creating this course was being able to have an impact and think about those individual technical sides of the engineering backgrounds that they're coming from and the problems that they're trying to solve, in addition to thinking about the outcomes and potential deliverables for the course. So some of the topic areas that really stood out to me from EOP that I think could be easily incorporated in our course, which we're going to be thinking about, is many of the things that the students are already bringing into the course in their own interest, from the environmental side of things, from the material side of things. Many of them are already working in the lab thinking about sustainable technologies. The challenge will be thinking about the entire system involved in that, the manufacturing life cycle. So how does it mean to design something in a lab and then scale it up to an actual manufacturing viability level? So we're going to be incorporating some of those different aspects as we move forward with the course. We have 10 PhD students this fall. We're looking to use some of the gracious funding that VentureWell gave us for prototyping in the course. The students are going to be giving pitches at the end of the semester as to what they're going to do with that funding, and they will be presenting that at our program's annual event with industry partners in April the following spring. One of the key aspects, I think, that I really was drawn to in EOP was this idea of communication and teamwork. One of the things that many of the PhD students at CUNY lack that I found when I took this position is the ability to communicate their science to audiences other than, the typical PI or their science colleagues. This is one of the key areas, I think, that is key to the development of careers for these students as they go out into the STEM workforce of tomorrow. And one of the ways we do this in our course is and I think I heard this mentioned by a few of the other colleagues here, is using customer discovery-based business model plans to go out and actually talk to industry partners. And that really forces them to be able to think about their science in a way that, they can get a message across to various different audiences and have the same level of impact. So I think that's one of the ways that we'd like to continue developing the course, but also keeping in mind now that many of the industries out there in the world are also already creating sustainable divisions within their industries. I heard that from the representative from Siemens that spoke at the Lemelson Foundation session. And I think that's one area where bringing representatives from industry who can really show industry project use cases could be of value to continuing the impact of the students going back into the lab and thinking about their PhDs as they continue on in their careers. So I just want to say thanks and looking forward to answering any questions.
Thank you so much, Tavis. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and we will take a look at what questions we have here. Let's see here. So we've got a couple that are a bit long, so I'm going to read these, and then feel free to just unmute yourself, panelists, when you would like to answer. Introducing topics in classes via assignments, projects, presentations contributes to EOP. My question is, do you think this is enough to create future engineers that will be more focused on changing the planet, while industry and general public are not the same level, or are not at the same level of desire and intention? This person would like to hear each presenter's viewpoint on this. And if you need me to repeat anything, I'm glad to.
Jamie, I will take the first shot. So I'm not sure it's going to be good enough, but I think it's a very good starting point. So a lot of our students are not necessarily have sustainability in their mind as an engineer. I think it's very important to have this sustainability in mind. And beyond that, we're introducing the tools that can help them to have innovative, sustainable design. So I think that is, and frankly, this is my first time implementing EOP, so I'm still learning. So I'll have better idea what works, what not work. But I'm just excited to give students opportunity to be exposed to sustainability and its tools.
I want to quickly add to what Stephen just said. Engineers are innovators, so we come up with new ideas that can change the future, of how we do things. So hopefully, even if we can instill the idea of sustainability in few engineers that take these classes, I think that can make a huge impact in a general public and the public as a whole. So that's our goal, I think. And of course, just like Stephen said, this is the first time I'm implementing it. And based on the student feedback, it's a continuous improvement cycle. We do it once, we improve it again. And based on how it goes, we improve it again, right? So.
I've noticed there's an increasing awareness of environmental related issues given the current climate change environment we're in right now. So more and more industries are actually embracing this idea, but they need more guidance on how to do that. So I think this is an area that our students, if they have knowledge and skills in this, they can actually help to drive the change in the industry. So actually, I found a lot of my students who have done sustainability or entrepreneurship related projects, they can use that as a good selling point for them to find internships and then jobs. So actually, this will be a good additional asset for the students to have when they actually embark on a new career.
Yeah, to me, incorporating EOP topics into coursework is important, but it's just a starting point. Engineers really need to get some real world experience. They need to be exposed to internships, go on field trips, community projects to drive any change. And there's a need for the synergy between academia and the industry to make anything work. Education will probably just provide the groundwork, but they need to get that hands-on experience to truly have a difference and make change.
Maybe I'll just add one point, which is stepping out a little bit further and thinking broadly about policy. Having attended a lot of events this week related around climate and advancing climate-related technology, one of the key points that was stressed was companies thinking about policy and how they engage with their policymakers. Because no matter how well we train engineers to think about sustainability and systems thinking, and companies are certainly doing that in order to impact much more rapid change, which is required to solve some of these problems, we really have to also be thinking about advocating, I think, at a larger level within our universities. So not just in the classroom, but outside as well.
Thanks, everyone. I have someone that just has a comment, but I'm going to read it because I think it's an interesting thing to think about, and then I'll go to the next question. John says the one big thing explicitly missing is ethics. No sustainability without ethics. So if folks have thoughts about that, but I'm going to go ahead and read the next question as well. Bono says, thanks for sharing all of this. For those who integrate EOP into a technically oriented engineering course, could you mention one difficulty you faced and how you addressed it?
So the thing, again, I'm going to take this shot because I'm currently trying to implement it. Before I start the course, my biggest concern is my talk is my schedule is pretty full. Now I'm trying to introduce a new layer to this course. So I'm just, and really, frankly, I'm a little concerned about students and will push back. It's already pretty condensed course. So, but what I learned, number one, is, like I said, after attending the ASEE conference, I saw how other people implement it. So I don't have to change the way I teach too much, specifically in terms of assessment perspective. The student outcome, I don't have to change too much. I can just align it with the existing one. So that's a relief for me. And also, students are pretty receptive to sustainability ideas. So because my hope is I present a lot of material, I give to them like videos, handouts on our course management system, and I expect them to spend some time there because they understand this is what they need to do for their project. So far, they're pretty okay with this extra load, but I might have other difficulties along the way. I don't know. I'll report it if I have an opportunity later on.
Thanks, Stephen. Did anybody else have a technically oriented course that they wanted to speak about?
Yeah, I can add that in my transportation engineering courses, so I implement some of the integrate some environmental aspect to it in terms of simulation and discussion. And there's a group project that students need to leverage some microscopic travel data, pollution data to understand the impact of travel on pollutions, and they need to make a presentation. It's a required team project. So I did get some comments from the students claiming, working with someone else can be a challenge. I think this is sometimes it's all engineers in original kind of personality or something. A lot of students prefer to work by themselves. They would say, "Oh, I'm just doing things faster and just by myself." So now this require them to work together. So I kind of reflect on that and provide more guidance on how to work together, navigate through conflicts and et cetera at the early stage. This is sophomore year course. So and another challenge the student there's a lot of writing and additional reading required. So I told them this is good for you, and you actually get on the job market. You have this knowledge, you'll be well versed on this emerging topics, you're in a better position for internships. So having these goals and state out clearly, and also kind of feel for the students. So I try to cut down some of the other quizzes so that these projects carry heavy weight. So that helps balance out a little bit. So.
Thanks, Arthur. It's good to keep in mind that sometimes you have to let some things go in order to incorporate the new, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to do that sometimes. I wanted to just make note of in the chat, Victoria Matthew. Hi, Victoria. She is addressing the comment about ethics and noted that there are points in the framework that do address ethics. So please take a look at the link there. So thank you for that. All right, so next question. Do you think the EOP framework would work for other sustainable design courses, such as fashion design, interior design, etc.?
Again, I'm going to take a first shot. Yes, from my perspective, absolutely. I think the design, especially we're promoting the system thinking, I think it applies to any design, for regardless of whether you're designing for clothes or for a building or for anything else. Have this big picture in mind, I think will definitely help students to achieve more innovative and sustainable product that will help the environment make the life much better.
Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, I agree. And just take a look. The person who asked that question, take a look at the EOP activity guide, and you'll see right away how like whole system mapping and life cycle assessment really do apply to any sort of design. So okay, so we have a couple questions from the same person. So I'm going to oh, and Cindy Cooper in the chat, hi Cindy, says for the person interested in design, here's a new article with lots of info. Fantastic. Thank you. So this person asks, how do you handle the fine line between nice to have and requirements in sustainability? And let's see. And then a second question from this person is, how similar is learning about sustainability? How is learning about sustainability similar to learning about risk or learning about duty of care? So feel free to address either of those questions, and I can reread them if you didn't catch all of it.
I'm going to take a shot. Sorry, go ahead, Arthur.
I can just share some of my thoughts on that. So there's already a question about ethics, and I think there's a lot of time we can engage some of the class discussions regarding, what is good ethics, what does it mean to take responsibility for us and for organization and also for the environment and society at large, right? So engage some of the, because in the past I've separate students, different groups, and give them the a pad so they write on and share with each other. And then really, a lot of time there's no black or white answer which engineers would like to have, but just get them to the kind of thinking. Yes, we need to consider all these different elements now in a very complex optimization problem. And how do we find the right way to address, equity and environmental issues, and also the performance-driven goals, etc. So I think it's very important for them to have the ability to discern what's important and encourage them to think critically about the current practices. What we're doing right now doesn't mean this is always good practice. So, challenge them to think about where do you set limits? Is it nice to have? Or if you put a high bar on it, that may cause hardships on many businesses or individuals. So having those kind of discussions to broaden their perspectives, I think turned out to be very fruitful from student feedback. So I would say encourage some of the kind of open-ended discussions, case studies with the students. That would be a good way to help them to learn about these differences.
That's a great idea, Arthur. I love case studies. Other folks want to hop into this one?
I would like to quickly add, for this kind of assignment, I think project-based learning or open-ended projects work really well because, of course, there are multiple right answers, right? So we want the students to not provide us a numerical value, 100, 200, but we want to have them think about different aspects of social responsibility, responsible design, human-centered design, all these things. And they should also do cost-benefit analysis. If we, just like Arthur said, sometimes the change should be coming slower than abruptly. So those kind of skills I think comes from doing these projects in groups, communicating with the peers, and of course deciding for themselves, based on a logic and based on discussion, which one is nice to have and which one is a requirement for the moment, right?
Fantastic. Any others want to pitch in on that one, or?
Yeah, I'd like to go back to the question about the interior design and how we can incorporate the EOP to that. So for whichever topic, or whether it's interior design or fashion or anything, it could focus on possibly sustainable materials, where those materials are obtained from, energy efficiency, and maybe there has to be a sustainable component as part of whatever discipline it is. So I believe that each discipline can mold the framework into its specific challenges and goals, and that will bring out that component. For the question about the nice to have and the requirements, for me, I kind of evaluate, my courses are mostly about climate change, and I kind of evaluate the urgency and long-term consequences. So core requirements usually address pressing issues and have a lot of benefits. Maybe nice to haves can provide supplementary advantages. So I kind of incorporate topics where I think is important based on their urgency. But for the core topics, you can always incorporate the EOP into regular assignments.
Thank you, Daya. Also, thank you, Tavis. I transferred over your comment so everybody could see it, and I accidentally left off the F. So for the question on sustainability and fashion, Tavis has shared some information with you. Tavis, do you want to mention anything about that link?
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. So this past fall at our building, we hosted kind of an interdisciplinary bio-green engineering conference. And this was one of the attendees who came there that I took a lot of notes of their design course at the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York. It was really fascinating what they could do in incorporating sustainability and also prototyping into a fall semester course. So I heard somebody mention that in one of the questions, refashion. So I thought I would put that out there.
Thank you so much. So we are about out of time, but I think it might be nice for each of the panelists to just say a phrase that would encourage others who haven't yet had any kind of interaction with Engineering for One Planet. What could you say to encourage them to just take that first step? And just really quick in the chat, yes, the presentation is going to be emailed to everybody who registered, along with the recording as well.
It's not as hard as you thought.
Great. Thanks, Stephen.
For the first time, I think everything that you need is already out there. So you can change it based on what you like later on. But for the first time, you can just do it and, see how it goes.
Thanks, Aditya.
My suggestion is to start small with a simple idea, maybe modifying a discussion or assignment. Then once you learn from that, then you continue to make more changes.
Beautiful. Thanks, Arthur.
Yeah, I'd add embrace it. It's a journey using EOP, and once you implement it in one semester, you can always make changes the semester after, and just modify based on how the students react.
Thanks, Talia.
Yeah, I like thinking about the framework and also being able to just incorporate pieces of this, because I think many of them are actually floating around in some of the curriculum that the students have. And we're just trying to use our course to try to amplify some of those in the context of entrepreneurship and innovation.
Excellent. I just want to give a huge thank you to everybody who came today, especially the panelists who spent a lot of hours with me and working on this and going to the ASEE conference. I just have loved every minute of it and loved learning from everybody today. So also a big thank you to everybody from the Lemelson Foundation who is here today. And we will be getting the recording and the slides out to everybody most likely early next week. So thank you so much for everything, and please visit engineeringforonplanet.org to continue this journey. All right. Thanks, everybody.